This is Jarrod Horak for the RunawayHorse.com, and welcome back to another edition of my 2020 Kentucky Derby video report. This week we're going to look back at the Ohio Derby. It was a bit of a disappointing result there, if you followed my video on the Ohio Derby. And then we're going to look forward to the Los Alamitos Derby. I'll give some analysis there. That one's on July 4th. And then on July 8th, the Indiana Derby. They've drawn the post positions, and I'm going to do analysis for that race as well. But let's look back at the Ohio Derby, and my top choice was South Bend. So if you watched my video last week, South Bend was my top choice. He went off a little less than 5-1, and he finished a good second. He probably should have won the race. It ended up being that Dean Martini from the inside post, he was almost 15-1. From that inside post, he had that good tactical speed, so he was able to save all the ground up and near the pace. South Bend was closing from 10th place, and he was racing wide from post 10. That was really the story of the race. So Dean Martini saved all the ground. He was up on the pace. He got the first run. He opened up a 3-length lead in the stretch. South Bend rallying from 10th, making that wide move in the stretch, tried to run him down, but he couldn't do it. So Dean Martini held on by 3/4 of a length. South Bend was second, and he was a clear second under Rafael Bejarano, and then stormed the court. He was the favorite in this race. He was stuck out in post 12. He was stalking the pace, but he was wide throughout as well, and he was well clear of 4th place finisher Rowdy Yates. So Dean Martini, he just sat the best trip. That was the key there. He was saved all the ground. Was up on the pace, got the first run. South Bend probably would have won this race under different circumstances, but the ground lost, and he was coming from 10th, whereas the winner was up on the pace. That made all the difference. And then even stormed the court. I think he ran well as well, finishing 3rd with maybe a bit of a better post. He could have even probably given Dean Martini a bit of a run for the money. But South Bend should have won this race. I think he was best. If these horses would hook up again in another race like this, I would certainly consider playing South Bend over Dean Martini, who would take more money next time out. Race, I don't think it was a strong Derby prep. It was a Kentucky Derby points race, but I don't think overall it was a super strong race. But there's solid enough horses in here, and the top 3 ran well. So now let's jump to this week's races. Actually, before we do that, let's talk quickly about Cezanne for trainer Bob Baffert. Ran his record to 2 for 2. I'm shooting this video on July 2nd, and on July 2nd at Los Alamitos Racecourse, Cezanne stretched out, second career start after winning his debut with a solid debut. They paid more than $3 million for this one. It was supposed to always be a good one. It was supposed to get better around 2 turns. Solid effort around 2 turns at Los Al. Stalked the pace, took the lead, and he hung on nicely to win. He hasn't looked like a superstar yet in his 2 races, but he's getting good experience, and now we're going to kind of find out where he is, wherever they decide to go for his next start, if he's ready to tackle stakes company, if he's ready for a race like the Kentucky Derby. Right now, he's certainly not fast enough. He's only run twice. He's won. Long-term prospect looks good. Maybe the Derby, he's not going to be good enough at that point. We're going to find out a lot more about him when he faces stakes company next time. Now let's jump into the races for this week. The Los Alamitos Derby, Saturday, July 4th at Los Al, the 6th race. They're going to be traveling 1 mile and 1/8 on the main track, and this is a Kentucky Derby 2020 points race, and the post time is scheduled for 6:28 p.m. Eastern Time. So in this 5-horse field, Cosmo is number 1. Son of Distorted Humor. This one's still a maiden for trainer Neil Drysdale. Now, Neil Drysdale doesn't typically just throw horses in Derby preps. He certainly can get the distance. I don't think that's going to be an issue. 1 mile and 1/8 on turf. In March, he ended up finishing 2nd. And then last time at 1 mile on turf, he rallied to finish 3rd. Doesn't seem to have a lot of speed. He'll probably try to get involved late, but he seems overmatched. He's a maiden. We don't really know about his ability on dirt yet. Distorted Humor, the sire, Grand Slam, the dam sire, bred well enough to handle the main track, and he did have a bullet workout on July 1st at Santa Anita, 4 furlongs and 47 and change, best of 30. That was a solid move, but I think overall he's probably up against it in here. The 2 Great Power is only run 2 times for trainer Simon Callahan, and Flavien Prat rode both times, but he's not going to ride this time. Drayden Van Dyke is going to be the pilot for his 3rd career start. Looked good in his career debut last September at Santa Anita. Stalked the pace, won easily as the big favorite. And then he came back off of a long layoff from September of 2019 to March of 2020, a 1 mile race, optional claiming race. Charlatan won that race easily by more than 10 lengths. He came back and was a stakes winner after that. Rushy was a clear second there, and Rushy came back and finished third in the Santa Anita Derby. And now Great Power is going to make his next start. So he still has a lot of upside. I think he's going to stalk the pace. Not a good sign that Prat jumps off. But he's won. I think he'll stalk the pace. He should continue to improve. We'll find out how good he is in his third lifetime start. The 3 is 1,000 Words. He's 9-5. He's your second choice for trainer Bob Baffert. Flavien Prat's going to ride. Nice pedigree here. They paid more than $1 million at the 2018 Keeneland sales for this one. And then career debut. He won that in a sprint. Stretched out at Los Al in his second career start in the Los Al Futurity. And he beat Anneau, and that was on a wet track by a neck, but it was a measured neck. He was much the best that day. And then in the Robert Lewis Stakes, he won that one. So he had back-to-back Kentucky Derby points race victories around 2 turns. It looked like he was going to be one of those horses that could be a threat for Baffert on the Derby Trail. But then the wheels came off the cart. The San Felipe Stakes, he was a well-beaten 4th. He tried to chase the pace. He couldn't keep up with Authentic there or Honor AP. They both came back. Honor AP was first and Authentic was second in the Santa Anita Derby. And then in his next start for 1,000 Words, the Oaklawn Stakes, wet track, bad start, super fast pace there. He never really got involved. He finished 11th, well beaten in a 13-horse field. So now he takes blinkers off. Flavien Prat is going to ride him back, and he was his winning rider for those first 3 victories. And I mentioned that Prat jumps off the 2-horse in here and goes over to 1,000 Words, and he seems to be training well. The 4 in here is Uncle Chuck, another Bob Baffert entrant. He's 6-5 morning line. Luis Saez is going to ride. I guarantee they're going to be sending this horse out to the front. He's pretty aggressively handled in his debut. He battled up on the pace from the inside post after breaking a step slow. It was a 5-horse field there. Mike Smith rode. He won by 7 lengths. Very easy victory. Don't know how much was behind him in that race. And we're going to find out how good he is today. He's a son of Uncle Mo. Decent enough pedigree. He has good speed. They're just kind of, I think, seeing where he stands, if he's going to be a Derby contender or not. So they're throwing him in here against some solid competition and see where he stands. And finally, number 5, Anneau. He's 3-1 morning line. Looks a bit like 1,000 Words. Early in his career, he was very good. Turf route, first time out at Golden Gate. He romped. They switched him to the main track for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile second time out. Missed by a head, stalking the pace. Los Al Futurity, stalked the pace. Couldn't get past 1,000 Words, but he was clearly second best. Then they shipped him out of town for the Risen Star Stakes, the Arkansas Derby. Never got involved in either of those races. Then back to Southern California for the Santa Anita Derby. He attended the pace. He finished 4th. But Honor AP, Authentic, Rushy were the top 3. Any of those 3 horses were in this race, especially Honor AP and Authentic would have been strong favorites. Rushy would have been a contender as well. So he faced some good horses, and his speed figure improved again last time. So I thought it was an okay effort, and he should be attending the pace in here. So overall, looking at it and looking at your morning line, if it holds up, Uncle Chuck at 6-5, I'm going to try to beat him at that price. We don't know how good he is yet. We don't know how much he really faced in that debut. He's facing some seasoned stakes rivals in this race. And even though there's only 5 horses, a couple of them have shown a lot of ability in the stakes ranks, at least in the past. And we're going to find out how good Uncle Chuck is today. I think they're going to try to, especially with Saez aboard, they're going to probably try to send him out towards the lead and maybe try to go wire to wire. But he's got to go a furlong further, first start against winners. He's still eligible for an entry-level allowance race, and you have a horse like 1,000 Words has already won 3 times. We have a maiden in this race, and we have a couple others that have only won once. So it's not the worst spot. I think with this short field, I think Uncle Chuck has a decent shot. If he's improves at all and he can get out there and control the pace, I would not be surprised if he won, but I do not want to take 6-5. I'm actually going to go with 1,000 Words in here, his stablemate at 9-5. I've always liked this one. His last 2 races were very disappointing. Give him maybe the wet track excuse in the Oaklawn handicap, Oaklawn Stakes. He stumbled at the start, just never picked his feet up in that race, so I'm not even going to count that one. The San Felipe, obviously he was facing some good horses. He was chasing the pace, and he wouldn't really settle. And I think maybe taking the blinkers off and looking at his workouts, they look pretty good. I think maybe they've tried to get him to settle. If you're watching any of his works, you can see he's been coming they've been giving him a target, and he's been trying to go after that target, and he has been. So I think that that's what they want to do. They want to get him to settle and then finish in his races. And he's a real fighter, at least based on his first 3 races. So if 1,000 Words can run back to that kind of form, I just think he has, right now, he has just more experience than his stablemate Uncle Chuck. And if it becomes a battle in the stretch, I think that 1,000 Words, he's already a 3-time winner. He's a 2-time stakes winner. And I think that he can just outfinish Uncle Chuck in here. But the way that I would play it, if the odds hold up and Uncle Chuck is the big favorite in 1,000 Words as a second choice, I'll make a win bet on 1,000 Words. Then I'll play a one-way exacta with 1,000 Words over a New Door because I'm just looking for that Los Alamitos futurity form to just come back here. And if they run exactly that way again, the second and third choices in an exacta in a 5-horse field with the over-bet favorite, it could end up paying. So let's jump over now to Indiana Grand Race 11 for Wednesday, July 8th. And they've drawn the field in here. It's the Grade 3 Indiana Derby, 1 mile and an eighth on the main track, and this is a Kentucky Derby 2020 points race. Let's go through the field, and then I'll give you my top choice. No Getting Over Me is the 1, Saffie Joseph Jr., and he moved to the Saffie Joseph barn, ran well on his last 2. I'm not sure that he wants to go this far or how good he is. Those races were against Florida Bred Company, and his last race was 1 mile around 1 turn. Extraordinary is the 2. Luis Saez is going to ride for trainer Rodolphe Brissett. This one added blinkers last time at this 1 mile and an eighth distance at Churchill Downs. Man in the Can won that one. Dean Martini was second, and we know he came back and won the Ohio Derby. And then Erner was third for Steve Asmussen, and he's in this race as well. He's going to have to improve. He does have tactical speed. He didn't show it last time, but he did show tactical speed in his first 3 starts. Don't know how good he is. Taishan is number 3 for trainer Richard Baltus. He should show speed. The problem with Taishan is if you look at his speed figures and look at his best races, his best 2 career speed figures were earned on wet tracks when he romped at Oaklawn Park against Optional Claiming Company on March 14th. And then in the Oaklawn Stakes, he stalked. He took the lead. He ended up 3rd. That was a race that the pace kind of fell apart. He ran well there, but I think the wet track had more to do with it than anything because he came back in the Arkansas Derby. He steadily retreated. He was nowhere. And his fast track win, the only time he ran well on a fast track, was a maiden win at Santa Anita, but the speed figure wasn't great. So his speed figures, if it's a wet track, certainly consider him a strong contender. Otherwise, I'm going to try to beat him. Erner is number 4 for Steve Asmussen. We mentioned him in that Man in the Can, a Dean Martini race. He ended up finishing 3rd. He set the pace. I like the effort he did second time out when he stretched out from 6 furlongs to 1 mile and a 16th. From Fairgrounds when he finished 2nd in that career debut behind Echo Town at 6 furlongs, came back at 1 mile and a 16th and won nicely to break his maiden second time out, and then first start against winners, a solid enough 3rd. Still has some upside, don't know how good he is or how far he wants to go. They paid $425,000 for this one. Number 5, Shared Sense is a son of Street Sense. Bernardini on the dam side, certainly bred to run and handle this distance. He was actually placed first in his maiden victory last fall at Churchill Downs. He was 2nd, beaten 5 lengths, placed first to disqualification there. And then Sparty Jones Stakes, he didn't run well, and then he won an Oaklawn Optional Claiming race, rallying from off the pace. And then he was 2nd in a 4-horse field last time out at Churchill Downs. The 6 is Background. And this one didn't run well in a sprint race last time, and he's kind of all over the map. He went from sprint to route. From his career debut, finishing 3rd in a sprint. They stretched him out, broke his maiden nicely, and then he was a distant 3rd, and then nowhere in the Oaklawn Stakes. And then he was 3rd again in a route, and then they turned him back, and he didn't run well last time, and now they're stretching him out again, and they're taking a shot against Stakes Company. He's going to have to run much, much better than he did in the Oaklawn Stakes. Juggernaut is the 7, Keith Sormo is the trainer, and this one will probably show speed just like he has in all of his starts. He's 1 for 5 with a 2nd place finish. That 2nd was in a turf route last time out. So he should be up on the pace. Again, I don't really know how far he wants to go. And there is some other speed in here. Major Fed is probably going to be your favorite. He's the 8. Greg Foley is the trainer here. He's run 5 times with a win, a 2nd, and a 3rd. It was nice to see him break his maiden stretching out in distance 2nd time out at Fairgrounds and then finish 2nd by a length in the Risen Star Stakes behind Modernist. New York Traffic was 3rd. The Louisiana Derby, he showed speed in those other races, but then in the Louisiana Derby from post 1, he broke slow. He rallied from 14th to finish 4th in a race that didn't have a lot of pace. And then coming back in the Matt win, you figure he could run well considering the Louisiana Derby. He really had no shot in that paceless race, rallying from last, and he wasn't embarrassed. But then the Matt Winn Stakes, he just didn't run his race. Out from post 10, he just never was able to get in. Hung out wide throughout, and he finished 10th, beaten 15 lengths. Would not be surprised if he improved, but that Louisiana form in those graded stakes races isn't particularly holding up very strong. Horses like Modernist have come back and disappointed, Wells Bayou as well. So those fairgrounds horses haven't been doing as well, and if he's going to be the favorite, I would want to try to beat him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ran okay. Number 9, Winning Impression for trainer Dallas Stewart. 7 starts with a win, a second, and a third. He was 4th in the Arkansas Derby. Didn't really have a shot in there. Charlatan ran away with that one and controlled the pace. Basin was 2nd, Gouverneur Morris was 3rd, and they both stalked the pace. And then Winning Impression tried to rally from 7th place, and he ended up finishing 4th, a couple lengths behind, 3 lengths behind Gouverneur Morris. He's shown some ability in some of his other races. He was making slow speed figure progress, and again in the Arkansas Derby, not a bad effort. I could see him being very competitive in this spot. Finally, number 10, Necker Island. He was claimed out of his last race for $100,000. Chris Hartman has him now, and this one he's going to have to improve. His only career victory, one of his career victories, obviously, when he broke his maiden, was on a fast track at a sprint, and then on a wet track. He won his second career win by a nose. Since then, he hasn't even hit the board. He was in the Swale, the Gotham, the Unbridled Stakes, the Matt Winn. Didn't hit the board in any of those. And then in that race last time, Shared Sense, who's in this race, he finished 2nd. Necker Island ran last in that 4-horse field. This looks like they're just taking a shot first after the claim. I would be very surprised if he ran a good race in here. He really hasn't been threatening this kind of company. So number 8, Major Feds, probably your favorite. I would not be surprised if he ran well. He had a bad trip actually in his last 2 starts, and if he can get that Risen Star form back and he can stalk the pace and not lose too much ground, maybe he can improve. If you're looking for a horse at least to finish somewhere in the top 3, number 9, Winning Impressions could be that horse. I thought he had a shot to hit the board in the Arkansas Derby. If you watched my Arkansas Derby video, was about Charlatan. I liked the Winning Impression underneath. I wish he could have gotten 2nd or 3rd. He just didn't get enough pace help, and he ended up 4th there. I can see him improving. Dallas Stewart can be dangerous in these graded routes, especially in the 3-year-old division. Over the years, he's done well. Horses have hit the board in the Derby, the Preakness Stakes. So we've seen Dallas Stewart do this before, and I would not be surprised if he ran well. But I'm going to go with the 5, Shared Sense, as my top choice for trainer Brad Cox. Best last out speed figure, last time out. Not a bad effort. He was beaten 6 lengths in that 4-horse field, but that was a paceless race. He absolutely had no chance against Art Collector in that 4-horse field, and it was nice to see him get past Finnick the Fierce, a solid enough horse to finish 2nd, rallying from 4th. So bred to get this distance. I mentioned the top and bottom, a nice pedigree, and if you look at his fast track speed figures, they've improved each time. In 6.5 furlong debut on dirt at Keeneland, he was 4th, and they stretched him out to 1 mile. He was 2nd. Then he caught the slop in his next start, and then the mud in his start after that. And then back on a fast track, he won by a nose in February 29th of this year. Then they put him on turf. He ended up finishing 6th of 13. Back on dirt last time. Again, the speed figure went up. So in each of his 4 fast track dirt starts, his speed figure has improved each time with a win and 2 seconds. I think he's well posted. He's going to get some pace to chase, it looks like. And I'm going to go with the 5, Shared Sense, in the Indiana Derby. But I said definitely you want to use Winning Impression somewhere in there as well. I think he could run a good race for trainer Dallas Stewart. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel, make some comments in the comment section. Who do you like in some of these Derby prep races? The Los Al Derby, the Indiana Derby. If you have any opinions, feel free to share them in the comment section in this video. If you're interested in my full card analysis, Belmont Park this Saturday, and then starting next week on July 10th, Del Mar starts. Daily full cards from Del Mar starting July 10th at therunawayhorse.com. Free picks on my New York and California page, free stakes picks on those pages at therunawayhorse.com. And that will wrap up this week's video. We'll be back next week with a look at some more Kentucky Derby prep races, and we're going to recap the races that I did this week. Until then, good luck at the races.